Rolling. Welcome, Khadija, to YouTube. FaceTime, people, please. You see us up there, studio audience. Let's talk about, this is all going on YouTube. Let's talk about, Khadija, how, maybe back up 5 or 10 years. We're all students at Stony Brook now. Where, when, and how did you use technology when you were younger? What you thought of it? How are you using it now? And where do you think you'll be using it 5, 10 years from now?
Okay, well...
I have to speak up.
Okay, well, originally, I remember my first computer that I got was in elementary school around that time, somewhere
a netbook, a touchpad?
No, it was a huge, big thing that we got, and the only thing I used it for was math games, because my mother was adamant that the only thing you use a computer for was for, like, educational, those fun educational games that makes you smarter. And then by high school, I'm a lot more primitive in terms of technology because I didn't really use it in high school for very much. But by now, I use it for everything. If I don't have my cell phone for longer than an hour, I start crying. It's kind of really bad.
Isn't that amazing? There was a great special on PBS last night about technology. Who saw it? No one saw it. Pervasiveness. They're teaching. They have a school in New York, I think it's the Bronx, that's based on simulation and game theory as teaching a curriculum. What are the pluses and what are the minuses of that?
Well, you'll have a lot more kids that are engaged in learning, and then you can get the true potential out of those kids because they're not thinking, oh, I have to go to school and learn. They're thinking, oh, this is fun, this is something I'm interested in.
Like you said, your math games when you were young. Does it still help you with math now?
I mean, no, that was for the basic, like you jump on a rock and, 1 + 1 is 2, and then when you got it, it was the simple, like nowadays with the big theories and everything, it's pretty hard to come up with a game that would make that even remotely entertaining to me, but...
Right. What is this thing about game theory? There are all sorts of game theories, and like cramming a high school curriculum into game theory is one thing, but what is it about simulated education, gang? In some senses, we're simulating a world here, right? You get A, B, C's, and D's instead of hundreds, 200s of thousands, and $5,000, right? Bummer. And so we're kind of in a university's been a simulated space since the Middle Ages. Pluses and minuses on that simulation.
Well, the pluses, like I said before, is the engagement. Like you get to stimulate the minds of a lot of kids that usually would get bored by the traditional methods of teaching. The negative is that you always have to be entertained. Like people nowadays has an issue with reading a simple article because by the time they get to the 5th page, they're like, okay, this is ridiculous. All I see is words. The words are moving. They need, something that's interactive.
So you think, open studio audience, you think we're reading less?
I think it's very true reading less. I think when you're younger, you read the Harry Potter, you flip through, Lord of the Rings. Now as I'm getting older, it's a lot easier just to flip open the computer, and it's less connection with the literary world, more connection with the virtual world.
Yeah, even though even though there's text on the internet, and maybe I consult Wikipedia every day, it's kind of wild, but I'm consulting YouTube for taking a training in a class and so forth. Reading less or more? Name?
Abby.
Abby.
I think we read less. I feel like our collective attention span, because of technology, is just decreased. So we're always moving to something new. Like, first there was Facebook, then all of a sudden Twitter was a hot thing, and now I feel like even that might be getting a little boring to some people. Just our whole attention span is just decreased.
So you feel gang is name? Christina, when it's cooling off and it was yesterday's news, you don't even want that technology. When your mom gets on Facebook, that's when you jump off, right? Everyone's like, Mom, you creep, I'm off of this stuff. It's really scrolling on it. Name?
I think it depends on how you, Dave. I think it depends on how you utilize the technology, too. Like, I learned how to use Photoshop through, video tutorials and stuff, too. Like, I learned how to use Illustrator and Dreamweaver and all that stuff through Photoshop, through video tutorials that use technology.
It's amazing. Like I told you, I spent a $500 class learning this complicated programming software, and this Australian guy put 24 classes on YouTube, and I felt I got more out of this free thing on YouTube than I got paid for a class in Manhattan. Name?
No, I feel like I read a lot more, now that I have a computer and stuff like that, because I like to take apart cars, and I wouldn't know how to do certain things if I didn't read articles, like certain websites. And they don't write books on, how to take apart this certain part of your car. Yeah, so I go on forums, and there'll be, 10-page articles, and I'll read all 10 pages. Just
Holy smoke! And how many of you have like a flu or cold or ailment, and instead of going to the doctor, you just flip on you do a Google search and say, oh, what the hell do I have? That's utopic. I've done that constantly this January when that flu is going around and say, what do I have? And then I got my doctor say, no, I'll combine the doctor and what Google says to figure this thing out. Last question, kind of real philosophical question, which was in this special on PBS. The Army recruits now by simulating war conditions. And that doesn't include sticking babies on bayonets, but is some way, if you become more, obviously they're trying to get soldiers to go and get their butts blown off or whatever. But there's something missing with the empathetic thing, and this is a very controversial thing because that's their soldiering is a business, right? So, whatever. But a lot of parents and people are upset that these simulated recruitment tools were used very much like a very violent video game. Khadija, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think it's appropriate to some degree because you want people that can handle it. Like, I particularly put in that situation, a simulated situation, I would cower so they know right away, don't choose her because she's going to just stand in the middle there and get blown up. But other people that are good under pressure or good in that situation, you get to get the people that are best fit for the job, for their business, because like you said, it is a business. So it's what you need to do. If you want less casualties, you need more people that are fit for the actual type of, combat. So I think it's a good thing.
Okay. What do other you feel about just the political, knowing the ethics, knowing the politics? How many saw that movie Hurt Locker? It's up for so many Oscars. It's actually about a situation. Anyone else opinions on?
What do you mean by the simulations? Like physical, like they're going through this?
You're shooting people. You're moving through like a situation.
Well, isn't that a lot better? Because they've been doing it for how many years? The simulation.
6, 7, 8 years.
When they're blasting music and like gunshots and everything, and they're crawling underneath the barbed wire. What's the difference from that? Because that's what you have to get used to, and that's what they go through training. And then it's a simulation of you running around with a gun. Like in that new game they have is called Army of One. That's supposed to be a simulation. But
does this, gang, open for all of you, does this leave us open for a critical opinion of war itself?
War is very unpredictable. Anything can happen.
It's often unjust, too. It's about rich men sending young people off to get shot down. Not for democracies, but for rich men. So,
as far as training, I think it's okay because, you hear about people getting killed in basic training all the time.
Yeah.
Like if you don't keep your head down. Yeah, I know a kid from my high school got killed in basic training because he picked his head up and that was it. So, as far as being safe, I think it's an okay thing, but I don't think it justifies the wars either way. So
simulation without, let's wrap this up, simulation without critical thinking, college students, is nothing, right? Khadija, we can, there was a video game that was pulled or something. It's like, Grand Theft Auto, you get to rape a prostitute and you score that way, and there was a couple other really strange games that had these really, if there were real life situations with molecular people made of atoms and blood and so forth, we would say there's something psychotic about this, right? So we have to have a criticism within the simulated thing. Learning about a car and taking about a car is not a very moral act except for your time. It's fantastic. Learning software and whatever. But hopefully you're at college in a liberal arts education to critically hover about the bigger question of what is right, wrong, just, good, bad, otherwise beautiful, ugly, and so forth. So that's it. We're almost at 10 minutes. Thank you, Khadija. Thank you, YouTube, and we will see you there.